My name is Darren Hupke, and this is Pixels and Polygons. Welcome to another episode. This week I've got Brian Rigsby and my wife Nicole. We both sit down and we answered a question about what's a fond gaming memory we have around a challenging multiplayer experience. So we did a previous episode around multiplayer games, and I thought it was fun, so it's worth revisiting and talking about some cool multiplayer and gaming memories with friends. There really wasn't anything crazy else to address at the top. This show's been kind of fun to put together, and I really like the feedback that I've gotten. So if you all like what you're listening to, give it a review, rate it 5 stars, or click the like button, or whatever platform you're listening on, whatever they have, that helps. And be sure to check out retrogamebooks.com. Check out the show notes for any links to those details. I'm putting together my 4th book in my 32-bit library series. That'll be coming to Kickstarter soon. So you can find me on social media and kind of see those updates. But otherwise, enjoy the episode. I'm welcoming back my guest, Brian Rigsby from retrogamebooks.com. Links will be in the show notes and everything as well too, for anybody who wants to kind of check out more information about the guests on each episode. But retrogamebooks.com is the best place to buy my books, 32-bit library. Some of the cool things we've done, like some trading cards and stickers and bookmarks and stuff like that, I've only given to Brian to sell with my books, because the other options, Amazon and soulless giant corporation, could only give you just the book. It's there primarily for me to be able to order the books, and for people who live internationally who can't pay like a lot of shipping. Like, I love that they can take advantage of that and still get my books. But if you live in the US, check out retrogamebooks.com. Not only are my books, but some amazing books by Brian himself and some other cool collaborators, you have the Hardcore Gaming 101 books there now, and then that Fight Magic Run, some good stuff there. So check those out. Brian's back. Hello, Brian.
Hi. Thanks for having me again.
Just to be candidly, we're literally recording these back to back, so it's like we're literally still in the same conversation from a previous episode, but you won't know that as a listener, and I did not need to share that. But the question we want to ask in this section here, I'm going to throw this one at you, but what is a memorable multiplayer game that challenged you? So one that maybe like pushed you to like skill up or just be the best version of yourself, or one that you just like sank maybe a portion of your life into to try and, be better than who you were. It sounds like you've got something good here, so I'd love to hear from you.
I do. I have something queued up. So this is a game, or a series, if you want to call it that, where I played this game for a really long time, many, many, many years, which is true for a lot of people who get really into multiplayer games, right? With the ones that have a lot of longevity. It's one of those games where it's the reason why I had to later, after I quit my addiction to this game, go back and play a bunch of games that were really great games that I missed during this many-year window of time. It's the reason why I stopped playing multiplayer games. I kind of have this rule where I only play games with an ending, because even a Dragon Quest or whatever can take up an incredible amount of your time, but at least there's an ending and you can kind of walk away from it. Okay, so the game is Counter-Strike, and I started around the 1.6 era, maybe 1.5, I can't remember, but at the time that was considered a late start. The majority of my time was me playing Counter-Strike Source. I never really played Global Assault, but I'll get into that. So this is one of those games where I always liked first-person shooters. I played a lot of the old school ones back in the day, like LAN parties, that kind of stuff. But this is the first time where I thought, wow, this game is like really gives you a dopamine boost. It's really fun. It's really strategic. it feels like, oh, you really don't want to get hit because then you got to wait, right? No one wants to wait for their next turn. It got to the point where me and my roommates were playing competitively. We didn't get very far. Like that, when you ask about like what's the most challenging game, I mean, that's where the really challenge came out, where I thought I was good, and then we found a server where people were really good, and then I had to get better. And they, like just like when you practice a sport, like I used to practice jujitsu, like you want to train with people that are really good because that's the only way you get better, and you want to increasingly go with better people, and that's what I thought I was doing until I started competing, and I realized, wow, people get really, really, really good, way better than I ever could have imagined. And it's kind of humbling to know that, I think I've probably hit my limit, and that's okay, but it never ceased being fun. And the only reason why it was both challenging and fun is that I made a lot of maps for Counter-Strike Source, and later ported one to Global, Global Offensive? I like Geo. I can't even remember because I literally only booted it up to make the map. So yeah, I made a lot of maps, and like I never had done anything in 3D before. Like when I was younger, I thought I'd be an animator or a designer or whatever. And this is before I had actually like became a game developer. So I was kind of doing this before and then in parallel thereafter. And it's crazy. Like you're building things in 3D, you're lighting them, you're making custom textures for them, you're placing objects, you're making sure it's balanced and fun, and then you're realizing it's not, and then you got to redo a bunch of work. You're putting like soundscapes in and triggered events. Like I did Left 4 Dead. I did like Left 4 Dead 2 campaign later, and that's even more complicated, but at least using the same engine, you have the same kind of tool set. So the challenge being, playing the game and getting good enough where you can kind of figure out how to design something for it, and then designing it being the next challenge. And I'm proud of those things I made. I think they look a little dated now because it's so long ago. And just like with any art you create, whether it be book writing or anything, right? You're always like, oh, I wish I had changed this or that, right? Pencils down at some point. You always have to kind of walk away from an art form. But yeah, Counter-Strike was the one. I miss it, and I will never touch it again.
And like that's a game that I have dabbled in. Like I had friends who used to go to like PC cafes like before like we really had sound like high speed internet at home and things like that. So they'd go there all the time, and so I'd go there occasionally, but I never went enough to like get good at it or anything. I'd play it for a little bit, and then I'd end up being like, oh well, I can like download music, and like I remember just like listening to the Misfits as like an early kid, like finding punk music and stuff while my friends played that, and it was like kind of odd, but playing it's like a good like toe-to-toe like fighting game. Like it's not about like the one round, it's about like kind of like the back-to-back combination of trying to string together like a few good matches or like a few good like rounds from yourself, and like every time you have like a bad round, you immediately want to get back in there to be like, no, okay, I give you better. Like it's weird how it's like not about one game, it's about like that setting or that session that you have of playing the game. And then because it's so quick paced and everything, that session could be from right after school until 3 a.m. and you realize like, oh my god, like mom's gonna come out here and unplug the computer if I don't get off and leave. But it's just weird how like that game was designed in such a way that it hit on all cylinders from like a pacing standpoint, like a twitch skill standpoint, but also just visually appealing. And it wasn't just deathmatch. They had other like modes and styles of gameplay that like kind of made you think a little bit differently. Like it doesn't matter that I'm the only one left alive on my team. I have a chance to win it all here if I maybe plant this bomb or etc. Yeah, that game was just, of its era, like definitely made an impact on, I think millions of people. I actually didn't even realize what GO stood for in Counter-Strike Go. I thought Counter-Strike Go was called Go like it was like Super Mario Run. It was just some like thing like, hey, this is like a mobile or like smaller size version, but I didn't realize it stood for something. It was just like the next iteration.
I think it's Global Offensive, but I haven't thought about it in a long time.
Yeah, I was like, it must be playable on like iPads and stuff too, and this is just like a mobile version. Okay, that makes sense.
It sounds like a mobile. It totally sounds like a mobile game name.
But yeah, for me, I kind of want to throw an answer out here too. But a memorable multiplayer game that challenged you. Same group of friends that I had when I shared or last time we talked about the. And again, that was just minutes ago for listeners, even though it might be weeks apart from actual podcast listeners. same wrestling group I had. My best friend, his brother, like my brother, and like people who kind of circled in and out from there. We played a lot of GoldenEye, obviously on Nintendo 64. The 64 was like a different a hub for us playing like a lot of these multiplayer games. But GoldenEye, of course, like many people played, and many people had fun, and many people were challenged. We got to a point though where like we all thought we were the best. Like, no, I'm better than you, but like, oh, I keep losing. And like, so obviously you're better than me. No, I got to prove to you that you're not better than me. And we got to the point where it was like, no, it's because you're looking at my screen. Like you're looking at when I'm moving or not, or where I'm at. And you're just getting a jump on me. So we started to get pieces of cardboard and taped it to like the CRT. And then we'd play, and then we'd realize that like, that's a whole nother level of stress when you actually don't, even if you weren't a screen looker, you still realize that if you see movement or not in the screen on the other side, like either somebody's like not looking at you, or if it's stopped moving, or are they lining up a sight or like waiting to get a jump on me? Like, so you still kind of knew, but once that was completely removed and you were only able to like just live on your own like devices of like trying to like, have your own personal skill, it just added a whole extra layer of stress that like made those multiplayer matches just even more like angry and intense, but like super like entertaining as well. But we got so hardcore into it that like little like light leaks and things from because the slight curve of the CRT, we would tear up pieces of paper to like try and perfectly like map to like the crevices so that you couldn't see any type of thing. And then obviously, parents would be like come in later and be like what the hell is this? Like I can't even watch TV on this. Take all this crap down. And it was like, no, let us put this a little bit longer, because it would take that much extra time to set it back up. But that just made you really like push yourself like skill wise to like be the best version of you. And it obviously like finally settled on who was the best and everything. And so that was kind of disappointing. So when the cardboard came down, it was like, all right, whatever, like my friend's little brother, okay, you're the best, whatever, who cares. But with the two of us together, we'll be able to take down anybody else. And it was always fun. Mm-hmm. But that was that's
awesome. I've definitely seen the pictures online of these kind of things, and I was always, we played it, but we never took it that far. The person who owned the game, we always thought they were the cheater because they had more experience, with the map layouts. But
yeah, that's actually
not really cheating.
That reminds me of that's a whole other thing. Like you'd want a fair and balanced playfield. So usually like a new game or a rented game would always help like have like a clean slate for a competitive edge. But yeah, the person who owned the game, it was like, hold on, like let us try it, let us get better at it. You stop playing and let us play for a couple hours, and then we'll all come together, because right now we don't like you. But that would be a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, right on. Thanks for another good chat, Ryan. That's another good question. I think we'll do obviously more in the future, and maybe another one now. So I know that I mentioned before, I'll put stuff in like the podcast show notes. I'm pointing physically because people can see me pointing on the audio podcast. But it'll be in the show notes, links to retro game books and your social medias and stuff like that. So thanks for jumping on again.
Yeah, for sure.
Guest I have is my wife again, Nicole Hupke. I don't know why I had to say her last name like that, like I was hesitating. My wife, Nicole. So if you want to say hi, introduce yourself again, and then tell me your favorite, what would be your choice of video game food if it was real that you would want to eat? So think about that. Introduce yourself, and then share us a favorite video game food you would eat if it was real.
Okay, so one of the things that I always find really weird is when people introduce me, and it's like, oh, this is Nicole. Yes, my name is Nicole, but I don't typically go by Nicole. I typically go by Nick, or that's what people call me. So it's just really awkward sometimes when I'm like, oh, yes, so proper. But I'm Darren's wife and partner, best friend. Yeah. Video game food. Okay, so this one's really weird, and it's not that I want to eat it. It's just it's like a crazy memory, and just I don't know. In Harvest Moon, when he eats the mayonnaise, it's like hope, and he eats the whole thing, the whole jar of mayonnaise. And the sound it makes. And I remember seeing that for the first time, and I was like, what the hell? He's eating a whole thing of mayonnaise. Gross. Wow, our dog is barking.
Yeah, that mayonnaise memory. The Harvest. I knew you were going to, or I didn't know you were going to, but as soon as you said Harvest Moon, I knew exactly what it was. Because I had played a ton of the PlayStation 1 version, Back to Nature, with Austin and Thomas, my good friends, who you know. That one is like the Game Boy Advance one, which is the one that you have a ton of experience with, like as do I. But like for whatever reason, I mean, you can eat food because it replenishes stamina technically, and if you needed to do that, but I didn't really do that too much. I wasn't trying to like min-max like how much stamina I had in a day. Usually if I was low on stamina, I would maybe try and...
When you're mining, you need to be eating something. Like, sure, you see those plants in there and you eat them and you might get poisoned by one. But, you know, I would take in my rucksack like some mayonnaise because it was pretty easy to make.
Yeah, that's the scenario when you would need to maybe bring food and instead of eating just those herbs or whatever they were growing. But it was usually accidental though, because you wanted to sell it because you threw an egg in the mayonnaise maker and it made the egg more valuable to sell and you'd sell it. But like you were just in this like mindless grind of this loop of the game that you accidentally, instead of hitting the throw to throw it in the shipping container, you hit the button that eats it and then you see the character just go home and eat an entire thing of mayonnaise. I just remember Austin, like he doesn't like mayonnaise. Like I mean, it was borderline despise. You know,
it's so bad. Like doesn't even want it near anything.
And so it was just fun just to like eat like a chunk of mayonnaise and just kind of gross him out in that game, which is what would happen occasionally. But it's funny. Video game mayonnaise. That's the video game food memory. I asked the question, but I didn't really have a specific thought or example of like what would be a food from a video game I'd want to eat.
So the prompt that I was thinking about for today or this episode is going to be about difficulty. So what is a challenging multiplayer game that you have a memory of? So like it could have been you like passing the controller, you playing with someone like simultaneously. And I'll let you answer first.
A challenging multiplayer game. I mean, I guess because you're here and on this episode, I mean, I do remember, I think this is worth sharing. I touched on it, I mentioned it when we recorded the last one. But Gears of War, like I made you play through Gears of War with me, and that was like a super good co-op game. Like that was just like well designed and well thought of. And in that, like in a generic first person or a third person shooter or a generic action game that you'd play by yourself, single player, if you died, like the game would be over. Like you just restart and have to restart the level or whatever it may be. Yeah. In Gears of War, you would get like downed, like you would like kind of be bleeding out and like hunched over. I don't remember if you could like crawl or move around. I don't think you could in the first one. Maybe you could do that in later ones. When you would get downed playing co-op, it wouldn't end the game. You'd have like I don't remember how much time there was. I don't know if there was a timer on the screen either. Maybe as long as the other player didn't die, it was okay. As long as they stayed alive too. I'm not quite sure exactly remember it. But you could also go up to them and pick them up and revive them, like in the middle of combat as well too. But yeah, we'd come across like just random encounters, and I liked having you as the co-op partner because it meant if I died or it got too hectic or careless, like oh cool, at least she's alive, and it would just be yelling at you of like just stay alive, or like just get two guys, or come get me, come on, and then you were basically like a free life, like as long as you were alive, like that kept me there. Or if you were downed, like that's okay, it didn't end my thing. You were extra bullets into things, and you were extra
like attention off of me, that if you died, like, cool, that would make the challenge a little bit harder for me for a minute, but then I'd just go revive you or finish the encounter or whatever it may be. But we didn't play that game on like the hardest difficulties necessarily or anything. And I think maybe eventually I did, and maybe we did it together. I do kind of remember the last boss, General Ram. He was like on a train thing, and I think that was pretty unbalanced and unfair. But that could have just been the natural design of it, not the hardest difficulty. But yeah, playing through that game was a good, challenging multiplayer experience because of the different skill levels, but just the way the mechanic was designed allowed that to not matter, really. You know, like maybe it felt super hard for you, but like I think I made up for that by like, you know, taking out most of the enemies while you were able to take out a few or that type of thing, you know. But the game would kind of balance itself in a fun way in that regard. So
is that the game where there's like the melee weapon is like a saw?
Yeah, it was I think they called it a lancer. It was like a chainsaw melee thing and all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay, I remember. Now I'm kind of like remembering that because I remember at one time you were yelling at me, and I really just wanted to like go and kill a bunch of like monsters, and I was doing it by just using the saw because I was a terrible shooter. And so I was like, oh, I'm just going to run up to these bad guys and go vroom, and get them with the saw. But, you know, always had you yelling at me to revive you.
But that would be my challenging gaming memory to kind of share.
Okay, so mine is also a game that you and I had played. I was definitely, you know, the beginner because it was a fighting game and I am just terrible at fighting games. I don't like to do driving games. I don't like to do fighting games. Shooting games I'm not really good at either. I just like action adventures are really fun, or RPGs. But Guacamelee, we played that together on like the hardest difficulty. And I remember that you were almost in like a just like, I'm gonna throw my controller mood, but obviously you would never throw your controller because you love your PlayStation. And you would just yell at me to like stay alive. Like run away and stay alive from like whatever boss we were fighting, because it was like super hard and you kept dying and dying, but I was just like evading because I was so scared to just even try anything. So the strategy for that, I can't even remember which boss that was, or maybe it was the end of the game, I don't know. But the whole strategy that you made for that game for us to play was just for me to like stay away and stay alive.
It was like Gears of War in that as long as one person was alive, the game wasn't over. And I think I'd beaten the game on regular difficulty, but it was one of those games. This is before, because I'm much more completionist mindset, you know, as an older person than I was then. But like, I remember loving that game so much. I was like, I want to get the platinum for this. I want to like wring every like drop out of this game for sure. So I think beating it on hard was a requirement for a trophy or something. And so because the game was well designed and super fun, and you could do co-op, in my mind were like, this is going to be hard for her, but she's going to be like an extra life for me. Like if I made a mistake, like I'll have like a second chance as long as you like rolled around and like stayed alive long enough. And it had like this cool evade mechanic. I think it was like an invincibility, like you rolled and you had like all these like iframe, like, you know, invincibility frames to you couldn't be hurt. So as long as you kind of like abused or spammed that a little bit, it kind of let you. But wherever you landed or ended up, like you were vulnerable then, so you couldn't just like completely break it or anything. But yeah, that had a lot of like, you'd enter a room and then it would be like a set challenge of like beating 16 enemies after like in 3 waves or something like that. And there would be like strange gimmicks of like, you know, they'd have a shield that could only be broken with a certain move. And so it was almost like puzzle or button memory to like do that, which is
I would mainly do, and it was just any amount of damage you did was like bonus bucks. I'm like, okay, cool, she did something, like, cool, that's just helping take a little bit off my plate. And it was almost, I think New Super Mario Brothers did it like that in the multiplayer mode, but you'd come back as like a bubble.
In a bubble.
Yeah, and
I could not drive the bubble. You would yell at me to like come to you so you could pop the bubble, and I could not move it. It was so difficult.
couldn't just directly float. I think if you like mash on a button, it would like jump in the direction you were holding, type of thing. But yeah, it was fun. But yeah, I ended up beating the whole thing, and I think there's a video I have deep in like my YouTube upload archive of me beating the last boss on hard without getting hit, I think, because I was just in like a trance. Eventually I just became like so like enamored and like fixated on like mastering it that like I just like zoned out and beat him without getting hit once to finish that game. But that was really fun co-op, like being able to do that and needing a little bit of assist in TLC from somebody. But again, as long as it was just killing one or two enemies, that was just one or two less I had to worry about, and it was just stay alive, and keep me alive.
It's funny because both of these stories is basically just you yelling at me to stay alive. Yeah. But I will say that, you know, we do have some really fun times playing together, and we have played other games where, you know, maybe I'm not the person that is solely just assisting you. But I think we had a lot of really good times and a lot of fun. Did we first play that game at like an E3 or some sort of convention? I can't remember. I feel like we first got introduced to Guacamelee there.
I think Guacamelee 1 we just, like, I played and loved from just, because it's like a beat 'em up. We could call it a fighting game. It's not a fighting game. It's like a beat 'em up Metroidvania style game.
Okay,
but it's, I just love that type of game, and it just combines, like, you know, the best parts of like that genre and made a fun, visually like interesting game. But I think the second one, we played the second one at a PlayStation Experience, I think.
In Anaheim. In Anaheim, right?
That was at one of the Anaheim Convention Center ones. I think they did it 2 years there, maybe 3 years. I don't know. They did it in Vegas, didn't go San Francisco, and then 2 years in Anaheim. Yeah, so just 2 years in Anaheim. But that's probably what you're remembering, because I think we just played it, the second one, a demo for the second one. And if I even really remember, it may have been released shortly before that, and that was just them showing it off for people who maybe missed it. But I think by that time already we had played through and loved it already, potentially. But I yelled a lot, but it wasn't like out of anger. It was still helping me, because playing through independently or solo, like, if you die, you're dead. So it was definitely needed support, but it was like, you know, anxious and anxiety and wringing your wrists, like oh my gosh, don't die. So it wasn't like I was upset with you not being able to keep up. It was, you were helping me, and as long as you didn't die, we could continue to progress. But yeah, my timer went off while I was answering that. So we've met our 15-minute target. So if you had anything else maybe you wanted to add to it, share that now. But if not, we can say goodbye.
No, I think you know, that was a lot of really great shares. And we can end this episode of Pixels and Polygons.